Hi, Thriller Movies Recap here. Today I am going to show you a horror movie from 2023, so relax and enjoy. Spoilers ahead, watch out. At the beginning of the movie, Rom and Bianca listened to a radio report about a 2015 camping trip where Angel Wilson and her friends never returned, and Bianca tells Rom to turn it off. They share romantic moments. Rom tells her he has a surprise for her and blindfold her with the intention of proposing to her. When they got down from the car, she takes off the blindfold and gets carried away by the beautiful lodge in front of her. Her friends come out and they share hugs. They go inside and Michael introduces Ms. Winrich, the owner of the lodge. She asks them to gather together for a group photo. Ms. Winrich tells them they like to memorialize all those that uses the lodge. That way they never leave and that it's an old tradition they practice. Ms. Winrich approaches Rom and Bianca, welcoming them to the lodge. She tells Bianca she carries the light and that she is a beacon. Michael interrupts their conversation and Ms. Winrich hands him a bottle of wine, telling him they always give it to their guests. Benny walks around and sees a photo of a woman with a little girl on the photo gallery. He finds it strange. He takes a picture of it and leaves. Ms. Winrich shows up behind him looking at the photo. Rom is seen with Bianca in their room. He tells her about the beautiful lodge, but she tells him he didn't have to bring her there and that her birthday was a couple of weeks ago. Rom tells her the last couple of years have been hectic for them, so he had to do it, and also the Strawberry Lodge has so much history. Bianca gets upset, telling him he brought her there because of the book he is working on. Rom assures her he wanted her to have the trip so that she would know how special she is to him. Bianca sees blood on his nose and asks him if he's alright. He wipes it off with a handkerchief, telling her he is fine. Later in the day, they gather together to have fun. Michael tells Rom not to put pressure on himself for not being able to propose to Bianca. He tells Rom he has been getting calls and he would need an outline from him soon. Rom tells him he doesn't want to talk about work and Michael tells him it is just an outline. He tells Rom he's going to prepare a fire pit with something special and the girls are going to love it, and he leaves. In the room, Russ and Meg talks about Ms. Winrich and the lodge. Russ tells Meg that Rom brought them to the lodge because he wants to carry out research on his book. As they converse, the door behind her slams, frightening her. They hear a knock on the door. Russ goes to open it and finds Michael, who tells them others were waiting for them outside at the fire pit. At the fire pit, Serena tells them that they can all tell each other their most personal fears, and they all agreed. She starts by telling them her greatest fear was losing control. Bianca tells them she fears the consequences of losing her faith and her biggest fear is losing the most what she took for granted, which is breathing. Lou tells them his biggest fear is not being trusted, especially by the people who are depending on him. Russ tells them his biggest fear is blood and there's something about it that he can't handle. Kimmy tells them her biggest fear as a mother is not being able to provide for her son. Meg tells them her biggest fear is drowning and that she can't swim. Michael tells them his biggest fear is claustrophobia because his older brother used to lock him in the drawer under his bed for hours. Benny tells them he's afraid of the cops after they arrested him and smashed his head on the car. Rom tells them his biggest fear is losing Bianca. After narrating their biggest fear, Michael tells them he's going to get the bottle of wine Ms. Winrich gave them and went into the lodge. On his way out, he noticed he has been moving in circles and repeating a particular route and gets worried. He finally finds his way to his friends and they toast to Bianca, wishing her a prosperous birthday and Rom his new book. They all drank the wine except Bianca and complained of the wine tasting awful and disgusting. Rom tells them to take wine from the bar instead of drinking the wine. Later, Michael goes to Benny apologizing. Benny asks him if he knew everyone was tested before they came to the lodge and Michael tells him he arranged the test himself. Benny tells him Lou is sick, that he has been watching Lou and that he has been coughing ever since they came to the lodge. Michael tells him Lou is fine and he will check on him. Meg meets Russ in the room going through the music record. He tells her that Ms. Winrich has some good classical songs and he puts on the music player. He goes to make out with Meg as the music continues to play. They suddenly hear a strange voice coming from the record player. Meg tells him the music is playing backwards. He goes closer and puts off the record player. Michael checks on Lou. He gets upset after Michael tells him others complained he has been coughing. Lou tells him he came to accuse him of being contagious of a disease and that he wants to spread it to his closest friends. He tells Michael he has no right to accuse him and asks him to leave, closing the door. Benny searches the internet for Las Brujas, a word he saw in the lodge. He stumbles on a video of a man talking about someone overwhelmed by an evil thought. He continues searching the internet and sees the wine they drank used for an initiation ritual. He also sees a video. As he plays it, the laptop loses its network connection. Later that night, while sleeping, Rom notices water dripping on his face and wakes up. He sees the door of the room open and he steps out after hearing a sound coming from the basement. He goes to the basement and finds some strange ritual items. He searches through a box and finds a note that says by feeding the souls to the portal, the gatekeeper will be granted immortality to fulfill their infinite bondage to darkness. He sees another card that says believing what you fear will bring to the victim what they are afraid of. As he reads and searches through the box, all the light flickers. While Bianca is sleeping, a fly perches on her face and enters her mouth. She wakes up as the clock alarm beeps and finds the whole place shaking as she coughs. She pulls out something from her mouth. She gets up and discovers she was dreaming. Bianca steps out holding her stomach. She heads to the kitchen and puts on the oven to prepare some tea. She hears a child make some sound and hears a knock on the door in the kitchen. She opens the door and finds no one. She turns and sees Rom, who tells her she left the kettle on. The next morning, they watch the news as the reporter talks about the health officials announcing that a mysterious airborne contagion has been identified and it is spreading at a fast rate. The reporter states that the CDC warns everyone to take it serious and not to step outside in whatever they do or they will get infected. They should secure all windows and doors and fear it, that the air is contaminated droplets and can spread in seconds. The air virus causes death within hours. Russ complains about being trapped in the lodge and Benny tells them that Lou has the virus. Rom tells them Lou has allergies but Benny insists that he is infected and he's sick. They ask Michael about Lou and he tells them that when he saw Lou last night he was not looking good. Meg tells them Lou's symptom is the same the reporter mentioned. Michael tells them to get Lou out of the house but Rom refuses. Kimmy comes out with her bags and tells them that she's leaving. Serena tells her not to leave, that the mask won't protect her, that people are dying outside and the air is contaminated. She tells them her son is at home with the babysitter and she has not been able to reach them and has to go home to be with her son. Benny tells her she can't go but Michael tells them not to stop her if she wants to leave. Kimmy tells them she has to leave, that they would do same for their own child, and she leaves the lodge. Russ tells them they might have all been infected and Rom tells him they aren't because they are fine. Meg asks him how he knew because the CDC mentioned that hallucination and paranoia is one of the symptoms and she tells them she has been seeing things. Bianca also tells them she has been seeing things too. Rom tells her she needs a rest and Michael tells them he also has been seeing things. Bianca coughs as they try to get away. Rom tells them it's asthma. Serena and Meg take Bianca to the room and gives her the inhaler. While in the room, Serena asks her if she feels sick but she tells them she is fine. Bianca tells Serena to get her bag and she shows them a test kit. They hug her when they discover she is pregnant. They ask her if she has told Rom and she tells them she hasn't because she has not found the right time. As they hold hands, Bianca sees a reaction on Serena's body. She goes to the mirror to check and tells them it's an allergic reaction and not the virus. She leaves the room telling Bianca she will get her the tea she requested. Rom goes to check on Lou. He tells him everyone has lost their mind about the virus and Lou tells him they think he is infected. Rom tells him that everyone is just paranoid. Lou tells Rom he quarantined 2 weeks before coming on the trip and he knows it's his allergies. Rom tells him he believes him and would never doubt him. He tells Rom that Bianca is a good woman and he should propose to her and not be afraid of commitment. He tells Rom he will be out after he gets some rest. Later in the day, Russ, Mike, and Benny go into the basement. Russ sees a door and tries to break the lock. The light starts to flicker. Mike and Benny soon joins him and they break the lock and enter. Russ tells them the place is an old lodge and it looks weird, and Michael tells him the room has no windows and ventilation. Bianca and Meg try to call Kimmy but could not get hold of her on the phone. As Serena brings the cup of tea, she stops to look at the photo of the woman and child Benny saw earlier. She sees another lady in the photo and touches the photo. The lady disappears. Serena goes to the room frightened. She noticed her necklace was gone. Bianca tells her she might have taken it off. She tells Bianca she does not take it off. Bianca and Meg stares at the reaction spreading all over her body. She tells them to stop looking at her, that it's just a rash reaction, and she leaves slamming the door. Back at the basement, Benny sees a box as he looks around. He opens it and finds a book. He goes to meet Michael and Russ. Russ tells them they are trapped in the weird lodge and he is not going to die being a character in one of Rom's book. He tells them that Lou is the only one showing sign of the virus and they have to put him down there in the basement, but Benny disagrees. Russ tells him it's only for one night and Lou would do the exact same thing to any of them if he had to. Rom goes back to the basement and carries the box he saw to his room. As he reads through the book, Bianca comes in and finds him placing the pictures on the bed with the cards. Bianca tells him something is wrong and he tells Bianca he went to the basement the previous night when he couldn't sleep and finds the box with the pictures and books. He tells Bianca that the lodge is where the women were tortured and killed. Bianca gets angry at him for his obsession and tells him he has not been listening as she has been trying to tell him something for the past 2 weeks. Bianca tells him that she is pregnant. Rom hugs her and she tells him she wants Russ, Michael, and Benny goes to Lou's room and tells him to come with them to the basement. They tell Lou that Rom needs help and they need him in the basement. As they approach the room, they get hold of him and try to get him to the room in the basement. He picks up an object and stabs Russ on the shoulder, but they succeed in pushing him into the room and lock the door. Michael and Benny takes Russ to his room and began to tend to his wound. Meg comes in and tells them to leave as she takes over from them. Russ tells her not to touch him, but she refuses and tells him she won't leave him. He tells Meg that she should not touch him, that they would leave in the morning if he didn't get any symptoms. Rom and Bianca go to the room and ask Russ what happened as Bianca goes after Meg. He tells Rom they lock Lou in one of the room in the basement so that he won't get every other person sick. Russ tells Rom he didn't know what got into him and that he never intended to put him there and ask him to get Lou out. Rom leaves the room and Bianca tells him she is going to look for a telephone to call the cops, that they need to get help as fast as possible. Bianca goes to Ms. Winrich's table and finds a telephone. She tries to put a call across, but the telephone didn't connect. She checks the record on the table and notices that no one has been in the lodge for 8 years. Rom confronts Michael and he tells him Lou is sick and should be kept where he shouldn't get other people sick. Rom tells him he's only thinking about himself and he should tell him where he put Lou. Lou hears a sound coming from the room and puts on a lantern to see where it is coming from. A voice in the room tells him they don't trust him. He looks for a knife as the voice continues to tell him he is sick and they don't trust him. A force pushes him to kill himself. He struggles with the knife but ends up killing himself. Rom and Michael go to the room in the basement and finds him dead. Rom gets angry at Michael for putting Lou in the room. Meg goes to the bathroom to wash off the blood from Russ. She hears a voice and starts hallucinating. She starts to cry as she sees a strange image of herself in the mirror. A force pulls her into the bathtub and drowns her. An evil spirit possesses Meg's body and she gets up from the bathtub. As Russ screams out for help, the record player begins playing. Michael hears him scream as he climbs up the stairs. As Michael goes closer, the light begins to flicker. He opens the door and finds him in pain. Russ tells Michael he could see her. Michael looks up and sees a strange being. Russ hallucinates as he sees himself wheeled into the theater in the hospital by a man with a mask, and he cuts him open with a machine, and he dies. Michael moves backward and the strange being grabs him and he hallucinates as he sees himself inside a drawer. He gets scared and screams for help. He is seen hitting his head on the toilet sink as he screams and he abruptly dies. Benny continues to go through the book he got from the box in the basement. He sees the image of the woman and little child he saw in the photo gallery and compares it with the one on his laptop. As he flips, he sees their group photos with some of their faces blurred. He hears a sound and calls out Serena, but the door slams. Benny gets scared as he hears siren and a cop's voice on the radio. He rushes to the door. As he tries to open it, he discovers that it is locked. The lock mysteriously opens and he ran. Rom takes Bianca to the room and gives her the inhaler. He tells Bianca that it is not the virus but the lodge that's causing the strange happenings. He tells her Las Brujas del Miedo, which means, the witches of fear, and they are using their fear to kill them. He tells her they have to leave and Bianca tells him she has been seeing things. Benny and Serena runs into them in the room. Serena tells them that everyone is dead. Benny tells them he saw their picture and their faces are blurred except for those of them in the room. He tells them he saw the word "No Light Tomorrow" and at the bottom of the painting the number 419 and asks what it means. Bianca tells them it's Latin and it is "No Light Temere," which means they should not be afraid. Serena tells them the number is a scripture and Bianca goes to take her Bible, telling them she has seen it before. Rom tells them that there are portals in the world that are places for evil and the portals have gatekeepers and their only purpose is to feed the portals souls. They consume souls to keep themselves eternal and to keep the portals alive. Serena asks Rom if he knew Ms. Winrich was a gatekeeper and Rom says he knew and thought it was just a story. He tells her he was just trying to research his book and didn't know strange things will happen. Rom tells them that everything they are seeing is not real and it is only real if they believe it and it will kill them. Bianca reads the Bible verse Isaiah chapter 41 vs 9. As she reads, the lights start to flicker and the door slams. The strange being appears and makes Benny to hallucinate. Rom tells him not to be afraid, that it is not real. The strange being shows up at the door and Rom tells them it's not real, that they are manifesting fear. They opened up the door and leave the room. As they move in the hallway, Rom notices blood from his nose and Serena pulls out her teeth from her mouth, but Benny tells her not to be afraid, that it is not real. They got to the kitchen and the strange being abruptly pulls Serena down to the basement. Bianca tells them they have to go find her, but Benny refuses. Benny stays up in the kitchen and hallucinates. He sees himself stopped by cops and gets arrested. Ram and Bianca go down to the basement to look for Serena. They find themselves in the room of the ritual and they get scared when something ran past them. Serena appears facing backward. As she hallucinates, Ram tells her whatever she sees is inside her head and it's not real and tells her not to believe it. Her body floats in the air and falls down and they both run. They leave the basement and find Benny still hallucinating. He abruptly stabs Ram with an object. Benny cuts his wrists with the object and dies. Ram tells Bianca not to lose her faith and she can leave the lodge alive and he dies. The strange being appears and chases Bianca as she ran. She falls in front of the strange being and hallucinates where she runs out of the lodge. She hears Ram's voice telling her it's not real. She is seen at the lodge as the strange being tries to strangle her. She hears Ram's voice again telling her to use her faith. She reads out the verse from the scripture Isaiah chapter 41 vs 9 and the strange being leaves her and flee. She then runs out of the lodge.
Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.